Dennis Malver's up over here to discuss the federal follies and what to do about them. So we're going to bring him on, moving right along. So come on, Dennis, let's get it going.
Thank you, Jason. And yes, as he's getting the presentation up here, I heartily endorse everybody becoming a precinct delegate. It's a wonderful thing to do, and everybody will be glad that they have done that. So, today's presentation is about federal follies, and we're going to start off by looking at our 4 local Oakland County congressmen. They're an interesting bunch, to be sure. And I thought one of the things that we could do, since we are approaching the midterm elections. Oh, here we go. All right.
Oh, hang on. There we go.
Okay, so federal follies. Yeah, go to the next page now there, Jason.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so our 4 Oakland County congressmen. In the 8th District, and from the 8th District we have some very good representation tonight, and I'm glad to see that. But of course you all know the famous, or shall I say infamous, Mike Rogers. Wow, no prompting. You are a great audience. Okay, now he does have the Republican marketing label. He's been the Republican nominee, and he's been a congressman for quite a few years and terms now. He's a former FBI agent. And the Freedom Index, put out by the New American Magazine, we think is a very interesting way to grade these fellows. And let's think of it like a report card grade, shall we? Well, he gets, in terms of his constitutionality, a 51% score. And of course, he's not running for re-election.
Is that a C?
A C? I don't think so, Vince, but we're going to see, and when we get to the next slide, that'll point out what grade that actually is. But very good that you asked that. That's why you have Vince here. He thinks of these things before everybody else. Okay, in the 9th District, Sandra Levin. Well done. He's a Democrat, and if Congressman Rogers' score looks bad at 51%, I mean, Sandra Levin is 17%. He's 3 times as bad because he's only got 1/3 of the constitutional score there from the Freedom Index. And we should point out that Sandra Levin is going to be opposed by a Republican nominee. There are 2 that are running for that position. George Brico and Randall Schaefer. And in the 8th District, of course, there are people who are now talking about running, and I think we've had a couple fellows who have actually announced they are doing it. Mike Bishop, and then the Mayor Barnett of Rochester Hills, and there may be 1 or 2 others that get into this. And I think we have some folks with some nominating petitions for Tom McMillan, who is apparently considering doing this. Yes, Shane Kozowski and Mary McMaster have those. And yes, Tom's been here before, and he's done a relatively decent job in the state legislature. In the 11th District, we have another Republican congressman. Many of you have met him. In fact, Kerry Bentivolio not only is the 11th District congressman, but he got us a proclamation through Congress about the Oakland County Campaign for Liberty. How about that? We're in the congressional record. Gee, I wonder what other congressional records or government lists we're on. But anyway, that seemed like a pretty nice one, actually, that he did that. And now Kerry scored, now this is at the end of 2013, 80% from the Freedom Index. And you say, well, that's pretty good. And that looks a lot better than the other 2. And then in the 14th District, Gary Peters. Well done. You folks are excellent. Now, Gary Peters, he was the 9th District congressman before all the redistricting went on. He's running for U.S. Senate. His Freedom Index score is even less than Sandra Levin's. It's hard to imagine. Maybe he forgot to sign his name to the exam or something like that. But he only has a 12% score for his constitutional competency. And so he's got 12% constitutional grade. From Freedom Index, he's running for Carl Levin's seat. And you've probably seen the ads where he and his people attacked Julie Boonstra and some of the other brave ladies that stepped forward to talk about the problems with Obamacare. And Terry Lynn Land is, at the moment, the only Republican candidate I'm aware of for the nomination. So that's those 4 fellows, and as Jason moves us along here, we will now look, because Vince asked for this. Vince, you asked for it, so you got it. You can see the grades, the congressional midterm grades of our Congress critters and senatorial people. E, D, C, A for Justin Amash. E, a D plus for Tim Wahlberg, E for Mike Rogers, E for Sandra Levin, E for Candace Miller, a B for Carrie Bentivolio. E. So you see 0.01 point. Okay. So then I go on to the next page. Because what we did was, I thought, well, let's look at the cumulative grade point. Think of these people as Delta House at Faber College, for instance. Their cumulative grade point is 11.5 with 11 E's, 2 D's, 1 C, 1 B, and 1 A. The average grade point of our alleged representatives is 0.71875. That's less than a D average. Should they be put on double secret probation? Or should they be expelled? Where's Dean Werber when you need him? All right, next slide, please. All right, thank you. So, anyway, apparently the internet connection isn't quite working the way we'd hoped. But if the voters were to behave as Dean Werber did, there's a famous scene, and maybe you later you can all go home and watch this segment from the Animal House movie on YouTube, where the dean expresses to the assembled frat brothers, Congress critters, what their grade points were and what's going to happen to them. And at the end, he's waiting for a response from them, and he says, "Well, out with it!" And then Brother Flounder does something that our elected officials do to us so often, at least figuratively, if not literally. All right, next, yes, very good, yes. Next slide. Okay, and in late-breaking news, Congressman Rogers endorsed Mike Bishop in the 8th Congressional District race, and some of you have commented on it, Mary among others.
Birds of a feather stick together.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yes, the aviary, parallels here. Okay, so that was the Detroit news, and moving right along. All right, so what are the solutions? Should we become precinct delegates?
Yes.
Yes, indeed. We think so. Absolutely. Precinct delegates, why they really are the people that get things done. Should we censure the oath violators?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting point. Should we vote them out?
Yes.
Okay. Should we ask the Supreme Court for help?
No.
You guys are great. Okay. What about state nullification? All right. Amen. And what about secession? All right. Well, now I'll point out, it is secession is a natural right, and it is the essential American political philosophy. And the men from the Scottish Enlightenment, David Hume and the others, and John Locke, who inspired Jefferson and Madison and Patrick Henry, talked about that it's the right of free association or free disassociation, and our Declaration of Independence speaks to this. So that's very good that you said that. But we're going to look at solutions short of leaving the federal union. If we stay in, everybody has the right to decide whether they want to or not, and we don't have to ask permission morally or philosophically. So, do we just give up? No. And what's our famous campaign for liberty approach to these things? Mobilize and confront. Are you up for that?
Yeah.
Great. That's what I was like, oh, don't tread on me. Don't you just love that? Okay, next. Okay, here we go. And here's the latest news.
That was great.
Yes, and Mary loves this. And she was pointing something out. And this is really new, though it had been whispered. There's something going on regarding Benghazi and Congressman Rogers and his wife. Now, unlike the people that do the federal Follies, we do believe that you're innocent until proven guilty. They have the opposite approach, that we're guilty until proven innocent. Right. But nonetheless, there's a good point. If Congressman Rogers' wife was truly in charge of the security at all the embassies and consulates, he might want to recuse himself from that, and these people are saying that he must do that. I thought that was an interesting picture, and I know Mary liked it. So, next slide, please. Okay, so speaking of censure, and you can't read it, we got a few copies of it, and we can share it with you. There was this censure resolution regarding Congressman Rogers that was developed and passed around at the last Michigan Republican State Committee meeting. And in fact, some people who had read it over previously thought it was pretty good, including Colleen Rowley, the famous FBI whistleblower and Time Magazine Person of the Year, who thought it was just dandy and should be given wider publicity. Now that the congressman is not running for re-election, I'm not sure what we'll do with that, though I think we're going to perhaps have an article or two that might come out using some of these points about the long train of abuses that he has visited upon us as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and as a representative of the great state of Michigan and even people here in Oakland County. And I say that when if you're involved in a political party and somebody from your party in your location is out there violating the oath of office, attacking the people's rights, their liberty, and their safety, you have a duty to stand up. You don't just stand down and say, well, we can't say anything publicly, because he's got our marketing label. The hell with that. Okay, next slide. So we'll go. And of course, you love the symbol of the Statue of Liberty. Lady Liberty or stuff with the fireworks in the background, because we will have fireworks as we fight for freedom. Next, please, sir. Thank you. Okay, so now here's a question that comes up. Does voting the bums out just get us new bums? Sometimes we'll get very good people in office. Like well, here's George Brico now, of all things. He materializes. And here he is. Or in our state legislature, what if we had somebody like, we can name at random, Martin Howrelak, for instance. Oh, there he is. He's materialized too. In fact, Martin, who waved to the crowd, he represents Troy in the state legislature. He does a fine job, as I understand. So there is this problem, though, that often people are disappointed in the new folks that are elected to office. Nonetheless, we think that we must hold them accountable. I think it's good if we vet the candidates for their political and philosophical stance, get them to commit in writing with questionnaires and things of that nature, and then hold them accountable for what they actually do when they're in office, you see? How often have we seen candidates say one thing and then do another? It's what they normally do. Okay, well, what about the Supreme Court? Do we go to the federal court system and beg permission? No. Do we ask the feds to limit their own power through the court? No. Do they issue rulings? No, they issue opinions. They publish opinions. We should treat them that way. And in fact, if we move along to the next slide here, what are their grades at the Supreme Court? Well, through 2002, they had found 158 federal statutes to be unconstitutional. 158 since the signing and the ratification by each of the individual states of the Constitution. There have been gazillions of federal edicts, federal actions. They have only the vast majority of them outside the bounds of the compact that was established by the people of the states, therefore that are unlawful. They only recognize it in 158 times. What's their grade? They're another 0.0. In fact, if you saw the video clip, they're like D-Day, incomplete. They haven't even...
Go, Dennis, go.
Next, please. Thank you. All right. Oh, the president. Why, he'll save us. Are you kidding me? We have an imperial presidency, totally at odds with any idea of freedom, totally at odds with any idea of limited government, totally at odds with any of the constitutional provisions that were written. And he's a global emperor. Yeah. Today, this president, who under the Articles of Confederation was supposed to be kind of a minor figure, before they had the little coup d'etat in Philadelphia, the idea was the president would be a figurehead, even under the current constitutional arrangement. The president is to enforce the law. The law is only, as we know from the Supremacy Clause, the Constitution and actions or laws or legislation passed in pursuance thereof. And wasn't that great the other night when we were in Farmington? Chris Ann Hall mentioned that point. Laws made in pursuance thereof. That's critically important. Okay, so the president, and this is not just Obama, President Obama has been terrible. But the worst part of the two-word phrase, President Obama, is not Obama. It's president. You go back to his predecessors, and they've all been serial oath violators.
Yes.
We have a major problem, and it's up to us as human beings and as Americans to put a stop to it. All right, so they've been operating with unprecedented power. They can blow up the world many times over. He's sending drones out to kill people, including American citizens. And by the way, the Bill of Rights, we have copies of it right here. Very important. Somebody, innocently, some friends from around the state were passing around this replica. They thought it was the Bill of Rights in a Facebook meme. And it would say, U.S. citizens are granted this right in amendment here, that right in that amendment. No, you are not granted rights in the amendments. No. The Bill of Rights was not to grant us rights. Amen. Mary McMaster knows, and she should be up here telling you. She knows better than I do. But anyway, I'm up here because But the point is that the Bill of Rights does not say you have rights as citizens. It does not grant you rights. It recognizes certain rights. The Ninth Amendment says other rights that we all have that pre-exist the government being formed still belong to us, and it tells the government, you may not take away from the people this right, or that, or you may not do these things against the people. It does not specify citizens even, which is a very important point. But the president today is operating with unprecedented power, no constraint, no restraint, and no conscience. Next, please. Okay, what about this idea, state nullification? Because after all, is Washington, D.C. ever going to fix itself?
No.
So what should we do?
Nullify.
Amen. And that's Michael Bolden, by the way. He is the founder of the 10th Amendment Center, which he began in his apartment in Los Angeles after he moved out there from Milwaukee. It's amazing what they have managed to accomplish, actually. Next page, please. Okay, and again, as we've heard through our studies and from some of our previous meetings and from some of the great thinkers and communicators like Michael Bolden and Michael Meharry and Chris Ann Hall and others, James Madison said, refuse to comply. And he said, when the federal government, or they call it the general government, goes beyond their bounds, it is the duty of the states to interpose, to put themselves between the people and the general government, to arrest the progress of the evil. And when he said the states, according to Kevin Gutzman and others who have studied this, he really had the state defined in three ways. The landmass, so you think of the state of Michigan, the two beautiful peninsulas. The state government, but even more important, the people of the state. The whole, and he said, and others said, that nullification is a natural right. It's a natural right of the people. The people formed the government to be their agent in protecting their liberty. If that government violates that, it is the right of the people utilizing their other alleged agents in state government and their offices to achieve the nullification, which can mean sometimes just a non-cooperation. If there's enough non-cooperation, the feds can't get away with their schemes. Many of our friends will say, well, what about state governments? They can be bad too. You're darn right. But we can fight that at the state level and at the local level. Next, please. Okay. Well, gee whiz, what issues or actions should be nullified? And I say anytime D.C. takes undelegated power. All they can do, it was delegated by the people of the states. By delegated, it means recoverable. We can take it back. In the ratification debates, and in that process, they even retain for themselves the right to rescind their agreement, to rescind their consent, and to pull out. And it was agreed that states could do that. And the people, as Jefferson talked about, could have a moderate middle ground of nullification. When they wanted to stay in the group, they wanted to stay in the union, but they were going to fight some sort of oppression. And so if it's undelegated power or insupportable oppression, as they discussed back then, we should stop it. We have a duty. 3 timely examples. The National Defense Authorization Act and other attempts by the general government, which is supposed to be our agent, but instead treats us like cannon fodder, cash cows, and conscript labor, through the NDAA, through the AUMF, through all their attempts to get rid of our constitutional protections with their unending and unlawful so-called war on terror, and instead bring in the laws of war and call this a battlefield. And we say, no, it's not a battlefield. So there's the Take-Back campaign. Fourth Amendment violations through the NSA, the DH, all sorts of different things are going on. And those can be fought at the state level, including with this bill that Tom McMillan introduced. And I think Martin was involved in that as a co-sponsor, if I recall correctly, on HB 5420 that Tom's got, and Shane Trejo, our dynamic and heroic 10th Amendment Center coordinator here in Michigan, and the national director of the Off Now campaign. We'll talk about that. And of course, Obamacare and other assaults on healthcare freedom should all be fought this way. It's a target-rich environment. There are many other areas and opportunities, as Jason advances our slides here. So, here's some recent news. The Justice Department has asked the Supreme Court, who we can't trust anyway, but they've asked them to throw out the Hedges lawsuit. And what has happened is, some of you may remember, Christopher Hedges and some other journalists, the Freedom 7, went to Judge Catherine Forrest in the 4th District of New York, the 4th Circuit rather, and she ruled that the NDA provisions were unconstitutional. They violated all, the entire Bill of Rights practically, and they also could not tell anybody, they would not tell her what actions one would do that would then allow the government to try to use indefinite detention against any of us. And so that she issued the injunction, the Obama administration went out and they got a stay of the injunction. So that stopped it. But it's been appealed. It's supposed to go to the Supreme Court. Interestingly, the Obama administration was also given the opportunity to say that the Korematsu decision, where Franklin Roosevelt immorally, unlawfully, and shamefully victimized hundreds of thousands of Americans of Japanese descent during World War II, to overthrow, they will not go after that. Chris Hedges says, he's got a good point. He thinks the reason that they are so adamant about this and why they went right to the other judge to get a stay of the injunction is they may already have some people that they have indefinitely detained with military arrest and whom they are denying due process. And they didn't want to be found acting illegally or in contempt of court. He thinks this might already be happening. So this is a very important thing that's happening right now as we speak. Next, please. Okay, so in this Take Back campaign, we've got all sorts of resources, action kits, sample legislation, and that sort of thing. There are tools for legislators and tools for peace officers, because we have to get the police and the sheriffs involved in our fight as well. Next, please. Okay, one of the big problems is who's a terrorist. When you go through all of this, they have lists through these fusion centers, and they include anyone who is doing the proper and moral and constitutional action. That means all of us. That means a lot of our political opponents who are out speaking. What's a belligerent act? What is substantial support? All of that's undefined. And they even say that if you take an action or have a belligerent act against our government or against another government that they call a coalition partner, and they change those all the time, well, that could be a problem for you as well. So it's really horrible. But there is anti-NDAA legislation that we can follow with the tracking provisions that we have here as well. Okay. Did you move it forward? Oh, no, you did not. Okay, thank you. Okay, so as I say, we have all these different resources, and if you see that thing there, it gives you the address of where you can go to see all the resources at the pandaunite.org website. Next page, please. Okay, so Jefferson said, when it comes to nullification, that is the rightful remedy. Whenever the general government assumes undelegated powers, a nullification of the act is the rightful remedy, as is moving the slide ahead to the next one. And, of course, here is James Madison, our fourth president. Okay? And he said the states are duty-bound to interpose against the feds to arrest the progress of the evil. We talked about this once before, and if you've seen the video, you can hear the great Mary McMaster make an observation. Well, we can't count on the nerd for that kind of help, can we? Have we been able to count on our governor? No. Have we been able to count on our legislators? No. What are we going to do about that? There you go. We're going to throw them out, and we're going to hold them accountable, and we're going to mobilize and confront. There's a whole lot of ways to do that. We do it during the election season, and when the election season is over and they're in the legislative season, we continue to do that. We do it through petitions. We do it through phone calls. We do it through lobbying. We did, and I say we, I'm speaking of the larger grassroots grand coalition, if you will, had a great victory. It was partial, but it was, I think, still notable. And this must have been a year and a half ago or so, but the state senator for the 12th district, who will now be my new state senator, or he'll be on the ballot anyway, in my new district because of the redistricting, is Senator James Marlowe. And you can tell Mary, the poor lady, she's choking on her food now. She hears that name.
Nice guy, but nobody home.
I should have warned her. But
I've known him for over 20 years. Oh my God.
They're like this too. Okay. Well, he actually, apparently at the behest of the governor and the Senate Majority Leader, had been the one who had sponsored the legislation to create a health care exchange here in Michigan. Stopping the health care exchange, not having a state health care exchange, is step one in the four-step process of nullifying Obamacare with the 10th Amendment Center program, okay? All right, so he got it through the Senate. They're going to the House. We had, just to show how this works, we had tremendous turnout. Madison said the means of opposition to this are numerous and at hand. And so one of the things that we did, as one of our means of opposition, a bunch of people show up to the committee. I think it was Representative Haynes' committee. And we spoke, and believe it or not, we got the thing stopped. Now, my state representative, and for those of you that live in the 40th State House District, which is Birmingham and Bloomfield Hills and Bloomfield Township, I believe, Mike McCready, I saw him outside the chambers of the House when he was going to do the vote. He said, "You're going to be disappointed." He says, I think we have to do this so we can study it and see what happens. I said, study it? How about if we study the Constitution and see what happens there? How about if we study all the other... How about we study the effects of all the other governmental intrusions in the marketplace and in healthcare and in medicine and insurance, all of which are unauthorized,
Right.
all of which have backfired on us and made the situation worse for everyone, including people of limited means, including people of the middle class, and have benefited a relatively narrow and small group of special interests that are very wealthy and are the ones that are up here right now feeding us all up crap. The hospitals, the insurance companies, the big labor unions, and the government bureaucrats. Why don't you study that and just, you got an oath of office, study that and follow that. And he says, you know what? Our big fight though is on stopping Medicaid expansion. Let's you and I work on that. Okay, great. Let's work on that. He voted for that too. It's an outrage. Okay, but we did stop the state healthcare exchange of getting through. And remember, on the Medicaid expansion, that was stopped too until the governor had his temper tantrum. He threw a little hissy fit, and even with that was stopped. Except then they had another state senator, Arlen Meekoff, who voted against the Medicaid expansion, which stopped it. But according to the parliamentary rules, because he voted against it, he could ask for reconsideration. So you see, this is another thing. And when you get more involved in campaign for liberty and you study this stuff, you get to become a little sharper about this. Like the great Matt Schoner, who's there from the Wayne County group. See, he would have already known this, but it would have gone by me because I'm naive, you see, as you can tell. But the parliamentary rules say that if you vote, let's see, on the winning side, you can then call for the reconsideration, but you have to vote on the winning side. You see, so that's what he did. And then he said, oh, but I voted against it, you see. But they pull these tricks all the time. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so getting back to the problem with the NDAA, we have the Restoring Constitutional Governance Resolution, which actually, among other things, says that the NDAA provisions and all attempts to institute the laws of war and call Michigan a battlefield and to get rid of our constitutional protections are null and void because they are unconstitutional. Very important point here. Each of these guys puts the left hand on the Bible. I'll get it right this time. They put the left hand on the Bible, they raise the right hand, and they take the oath of office, which says they will uphold the Constitution. Now, many times we'll hear politicians say, oh, but that's a federal matter. Well, it's all a federal matter. In a federal system, the sovereignty belongs to the people. They have local and state representatives who then watch over what the people in the general government do. And the general government only has a few enumerated and delegated powers and duties. Okay? In a federal system, they answer to us. When they say jump, we don't say how high. But what's happened here is too many of the people at the local and state level do not follow their oath of office, do not do what they're supposed to do. There's a concept called coordinate construction. And what it means is everybody that takes that oath of office has a duty to fulfill it. And they can't turn their backs, oh, but the feds are doing that, and it's not our business. It is their business.
Yes, it is. He took an oath to both the state and federal.
That's right. So, Mary's absolutely right. So, that's why we do stuff like when we went to Latham Village, Bob and Gene and I, and Eric was there, and Shane was there, and Bob and I spoke to the Latham Village Council. We've spoken to Bloomfield Township, and people are going to other places. What we're doing is getting the people aware, and when they're aware, they become riled up. And when they become riled up, they get active. And when the people get active, the politicians will listen. And so we have this Restoring Constitutional Governance, which basically says this is illegal, it's unconstitutional, it's immoral. We will not cooperate, we will stop it. We will not participate, we will stop it. And we'll fulfill our oath of office. And then once they do it at the municipal and county levels, we're also turning to the police and the sheriff, and we have resolutions to take to them. The same thing. And even though we call it resolution, when they sign and they agree that the provisions or anything else that's being done are unconstitutional, de facto, that means they must oppose it. So it does have the force of law, because only the Constitution and laws made in pursuance thereof are law. Okay? So this is very important. And then we also form citizens watchdog committees to keep an eye out, to make sure nothing bad like this is happening, and to keep the media informed as well. Next page, please. Okay, we can keep moving on here because we did all that. Okay, so, and this is, we're really picking up steam here. At the top, you see Daniel Johnson, who formed People Against the NDAA. When he was 18, 2 years ago, a college student at Bowling Green State University, born in Ypsilanti, but he was going to Bowling Green. He started this group. Below that picture, you see Daphne Lee. Some of you probably saw the video where she went to her local municipality, and she spoke and said she was just a mom. And for some reason, that really caught fire. It's gone viral. Daphne Lee saying she's just a mom, but she doesn't want her children living in this kind of a world that they're creating for us, and that was a great success. And then you see these four motley fellows here. That's from the powwow that we had up in Mount Pleasant, and that turned out to be very successful. And in the you can see Shane's there, I'm on the other end, and there's Dan Johnson, who gave a talk that by the time he was done, he had everybody in that room, and there were like 400 to 500 people, everybody in that room stood up and gave a rousing standing ovation, and they were cheering like crazy. We got a whole bunch of names of people that want to fight back, you see. And there's Mike Meharry next to him, and Mike is the communications director for the 10th Amendment Center, and he gave a great talk, too, about Joshua Glover and all that. And one of the points he makes in Joshua Glover's story is that Joshua, as an escaped slave at one point, had his own place. One room. Dirt floor. Probably 3 or 4 pieces of furniture, maybe. But he could close the door. He could close the door, and nobody could lawfully come in. Because Joshua's one room was his castle. And that's a very important part of common law. It's a very important part of American philosophy. It's a very important part of being a human being and enjoying the liberty that we all have as part of our humanity, is enjoying a part of the freedom that we have for those of faith. The good book says God made us in his image. Is he free? Darn right. He's free, therefore we are free. And when you see these politicians and these demagogues that stand up and do these things to us, they're not just violating their oaths of office, they're violating God's law too, and they're violating the laws of nature.
Right.
What did Patrick Henry say? Did he say, give me liberty or I'll vote you out? No. And then Tina Lewis DuPont, who's very brilliant, says to me on Facebook, well, did he say, give me liberty or I'll nullify? Oh, darn it.
Oh, forget it.
Thanks, Tina. Okay, but the point is, again, the moderate middle ground, right? We want to find ways that we will resist. We're peaceful people. We're helpful people. The other side has all the guns. They talk about gun control for us, but not for them.
Yeah.
They got all the nuclear weapons, right? They got the chemical weapons. They're buying all this ammunition. I mean, they've got. We're going to hear later about all the other stuff they're doing for the militarizing even of the local police, right? No more. We heard from my friend John M. Peters, the attorney from Rochester Hills, who told us about what happened to Andy Griffith. Or not Andy Griffith, Andy Mayberry, sorry. Somebody's hard to pull the dates and the names. But anyway, if you saw to see that was a great talk. All right, next thing, okay. All right, so there, I said a lot of things to get everybody all worked up, and I wanted to give you a nice soothing image. I saw this the other day. Yeah, isn't that sweet? There the 5 kittens, lying on top of the Rottweiler. So maybe there's another analogy here. Maybe the Rottweiler's like government. Maybe the kittens are like us, but they're on top there. They got, and this is the nice thing. So I brought along also, because we must have, as I'm reminded by my fellow Campaign for Liberty members and our great state leadership people, always have an action, something for people to do. Occasionally I forget, but we have this from Panda. This is a petition to stop the NDAA. Also, when you sign it and put your information on, we can have you as part of our groups. And what we do is, each of you in your towns, will coordinate the effort. Like in Warren, or in Lathrop Village, or in Hamtramck, or Ferndale, or Royal Oak, or Auburn Hills, anywhere in Birmingham, you see. So I'm going to pass this around with a pen. I will take out of my pocket. And we will pass this around. And each of you that wants to join us in this very important fight, I urge you to please sign up. On our sheet here. And we'll show the last page again, because after all, this is Campaign for Liberty, and when it comes to mobilizing and confronting and defending our freedom and fighting against the political class that's done so much damage, Campaign for Liberty does endorse that idea. Thank you very much.